What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the True Mets Talk podcast. It's your boy CP here on December 12th, 2023. Going to be making a very short video. I am still on my last day of vacation, so I am not in my usual recording spot, but I figured I had to get this video out, given some recent news and some recent reports surrounding the Ronny Mauricio injury. Unfortunately, we'll be talking about that a little bit, as well as the recent Yoshinobu Yamamoto reports and how that relates to the New York Mets. As always, hit that subscribe button, bottom right-hand corner, hover over my icon as you're watching this and subscribe to the channel. More Mets content on the way. Support the podcast by hitting that thumbs up button. I thoroughly appreciate if you could do that for me. And then make sure you go ahead and comment your thoughts and opinions about anything that I'm going to be talking about in this video and anything that relates to the New York Mets. I want to hear what you all as the viewers have to say about any of these situations. So make sure you follow me on X and Instagram as well as subscribing to my YouTube. All of my handles are at CPNYSPORTS. You know where to find me. As always, let's get into some New York Mets baseball talk. All right, so not just 10 minutes before I started recording this, unfortunately, I got the breaking news from SNY on Twitter and their account that it is confirmed that Ronny Mauricio, after undergoing further imaging on the injury, the knee injury that he sustained in the Dominican Winter League, where he kind of slowed up as he was stealing a base and his leg looked to hyperextend a little bit and lock. He has suffered a torn ACL. Unfortunately, such a brutal loss, not only for the New York Mets organization going into 2024, but for Ronny Mauricio and his 2024 season being gone. He's such a young, up-and-coming star. A lot of hype surrounding Ronny Mauricio. I was calling for the Mets and I'm sure a lot of people that are listening in on this were calling for the Mets to call him up to the bigs even sooner, as he was killing it in AAA early last season. He got the nod and he looked pretty good, not only defensively, but with the bat as well. Had a little bit of a spark toward the end of the Mets' dud of a regular season. So the Mets presumably do lose Ronny Mauricio for the entire 2024 season. I'm not going to talk and overtake this sort of breaking news by how the Mets now pivot in terms of the third base situation or the second base situation. There was a lot of speculation. I think it was confirmed that Ronny Mauricio was planned to be in direct competition with Brett Baty and Mark Vientos for the third base spot, with Jeff McNeil staying at second base. But we saw how Ronny Mauricio also looked and how good he looked up the middle with Francisco Lindor at second base, and that flexibility of playing those two positions, both third and second, is going to be greatly missed by the 2024 New York Mets. So, like I said, speedy recovery to Ronny Mauricio. I was thoroughly excited to see what he could provide, not only in the field, but also from both sides of the plate. He has an electric bat. And with the uncertainty of the third base situation with Brett Baty and Mark Vientos, he was just going to provide that much of an extra layer of protection if those guys did falter. Now the Mets have to pivot and rely on those two guys who are anything but a sure thing. And it just sucks to have to talk about this with such a young electric player that we won't be able to see now until 2025. So speedy recovery to Ronny Mauricio. Always hate to talk about a situation like this on the podcast, an injury like this that is sustained and suffered even before spring training starts. And it's an absolute brutal way to spend this offseason, and the talking points that are, I guess, few and far between right now in terms of Mets land and their free agent status. But this is certainly not something I wanted to come on here and talk about. But that is now confirmed, and I figured that I would put that up first and foremost and extend my best wishes to Ronny Mauricio and a speedy recovery. Now, moving on to a little bit of a Yamamoto update. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, we all know, met with the Mets in Japan. Steve Cohen and company flew out to meet with him and his camp and his family instead of waiting for them to come to either New York or anywhere in the United States to meet with them. Steve Cohen took it upon himself to sort of go there and do his due diligence on that front. And I know that got a lot of Mets Twitter excited when that news broke out with the beat reporters. Since that Mets meeting, I think they were one of the first teams to meet with Yamamoto in his camp. The Giants held a meeting with Yamamoto on Sunday, this past Sunday, and just yesterday on Monday, the Yankees flew out to California per Andy Martino and met with Yoshinobu Yamamoto. There are other teams at play, and there are other teams that will be meeting with Yamamoto this coming week. Most notably, the Los Angeles Dodgers, and we'll talk about that here in a second with the first bullet point in the Shohei Ohtani contract situation that we just figured out yesterday from all the beat reporters breaking the news about the deferred payments. But the Blue Jays and Red Sox also have scheduled meetings with Yoshinobu Yamamoto, some heavy players in the market for the services of Yamamoto, whether it's going to be a 7 or 8 year deal or whether it's going to be $250 million, $300 million, 315, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of question marks in terms of this situation now. But let's talk about how this Los Angeles Dodgers contract situation with Shohei Ohtani is directly going to affect the rest of the Yamamoto market. Yamamoto or Ohtani rather, excuse me, signed a 10-year, $700 million deal with the Los Angeles Dodgers. And it was rumored at the very start that there was going to be a lot of deferred payments, but nobody really knew how much was going to be deferred within that $700 million. Now, according to Bob Nightingale, John Heyman, and even Jeff Passan is now confirming that 680 million of that 700 total million is going to be deferred starting in 2034. Those payments are going to start to be made. Shohei Ohtani, just to break it down real quick, if you haven't heard of the news or understand how it works, is going to be making $2 million per year from the Los Angeles Dodgers over the next 10 years. And then the rest of that $680 million that he's going to be owed will start to be paid over that decade between 2034 and 2043. What does this do for the Los Angeles Dodgers? Now, this was an idea that was proposed to the Dodgers by Ohtani and his camp. They actually were the ones that figured that this was a clause. There was a lack of certainty around this rule in the MLB, where teams could basically defer the majority of a contract to remain competitive in the now, in the present. Ohtani stressed to the Dodgers how much he wants the Dodgers to continue to pursue free agents outside of him and to bolster the roster in terms of winning not only one championship over the next decade that he's a Dodger, but two or three or even four. So that has a direct impact because that allows the Dodgers to be more flexible with free agents up front now. The competitive luxury tax threshold hit that they will incur or that they would have incurred if this deal were to be a normal deal, 70 million AAV in the first 10 years would be a whole lot more than the $46 million penalty that they're going to incur now that these deferred payments are set to kick in and that we know the full parameters of the contract. So they're able to go out there and be directly competitive for the services of Yamamoto, regardless of what he wants, whether it's $300 million and above. The Dodgers are now flexible enough in their payroll to go ahead and pursue Yamamoto. And let's just talk about how that impacts the Mets' chances of landing Yamamoto. Obviously, a couple days ago, I believe that the Mets were the front runners in the Yamamoto sweepstakes by default, just simply due to the fact that Steve Cohen is the owner. And I still believe Steve Cohen's going to offer the most money, but there's a lot of other variables at play here. Whether or not there are geographic preferences with Yamamoto still is up in the air, but we do know a fact that he would like to play and is accepting of playing with alongside another Japanese player. You talk about the Red Sox fit that bill, the Mets fit that category with Kodai Senga, and now the Dodgers fit that category with the likes of Shohei Ohtani joining that squad on that mega deal. If I had to objectively speak on who the favorites are to land Yamamoto, obviously I am a Mets fan first and foremost, and I still want the Mets to aggressively pursue Yamamoto, but I am not naive enough to doubt that the Dodgers are now in the driver's seat with this payroll flexibility that that deferred contract of Otani now gives them in pursuing Yamamoto. I thoroughly believe, the reports haven't confirmed this, but I thoroughly believe personally, while Otani and the Dodgers were having those negotiations and those deferred contract payments conversations were brought up, I would have to imagine that Otani made it a point to tell the Dodgers that he wants to see the Dodgers pursue Yamamoto. I have to believe that that's a fact. Regardless of that's going to be confirmed or not, I have to believe that that conversation was had and that that was brought up. So that leaves the question, if you're the New York Mets, do you now, knowing what you know now about the Dodgers payroll situation, do you pivot to other starting pitching? This is why I was a proponent of Eduardo Rodriguez, who obviously is now a Arizona Diamondback on that 4-year, $80 million deal, which is a bargain for a pitcher of his caliber. He signed very early into free agency before the rest of the market got a chance to materialize. And I was a big proponent of that. Hindsight is always 2020. I thoroughly understand that. But that would have given the Mets a lot more flexibility. Now you have other names on the market like Shota Imanaga, like Jordan Montgomery, like Blake Snell, that the Mets now have to start to have conversations about pivoting to. Because if you're the New York Yankees and you also know that the Dodgers are capable of signing Yamamoto, and that hurts your direct chances for signing Yamamoto, then they're going to start pivoting to a guy, a potential reunion with a guy like a Jordan Montgomery. And I think that everyone believes that in this market right now, the way it's set up, that Yamamoto is the clear number one ace to target, and that Jordan Montgomery is that clear tier B guy right after Yamamoto. So if you're the New York Mets, if I had to give my advice to the Mets front office, I say you have to pivot right now. Um, Whether you use this year as a bridge year in 2024, which I believe the Mets aren't going to be doing, but it still remains to be seen about how they go about the rest of this offseason. You need to get another starting pitcher or two just by default of how the starting rotation looks right now in the present. With Severino being your third option in that rotation and Quintana being your second, you need to add at minimum one or two more starters, whether it's via trade or free agency. Obviously, free agency is the best way to do so without giving up any sort of farm system assets. But you have to start to pivot now if you're the New York Mets. And I'm not saying that the Mets are out on Yamamoto in light of the recent Dodgers Otani contract news. I'm not saying that. I'm still confident in Steve Cohen's ability to offer up the most money. And I'm still confident in the Mets front office to sort of pitch Yamamoto and coming to Queens. Um, I just don't know what nobody knows what Yamamoto's preferences are. Right now, he's taking meetings with every team that he can to gauge the market. The Blue Jays are going to be big spenders. They were leveraged in the Otani situation. Obviously, Morosi's false report that Otani was on his way to Toronto got everyone in the stir. The Blue Jays were in on Juan Soto. They were in on Otani until the very end. So it remains to be seen how aggressive they are with the rest of the free agent market. The Giants are probably itching to spend big money as well after losing out on Correa the year before and Otani this season. I think they were at play for Otani as well. So all these big market teams are after Yoshinobu Yamamoto. And if anybody's prepared to win a bidding war, it's Steve Cohen. But what really is the Mets' philosophy for this offseason compared to the 2025 offseason? That is what we need to sort of take into account and realize. And I can't have that answer. Nobody watching this, unless it's Steve Cohen or David Stearns, probably has that answer as well. So we're going to monitor the situation. Like I said, the Mets' chances for landing Yamamoto takes a direct hit with that news of deferred payments on the Otani contract for the Los Angeles Dodgers. They are clearly in the driver's seat, but I wouldn't rule the Mets out. But the Mets do have to pivot now. They have to land at least one starting pitcher before the Yamamoto decision comes out. They cannot afford to lose out on Yamamoto and a guy like Jordan Montgomery, perhaps to the Yankees, if they decide to pivot over there in the Bronx. So, like I said, let me know in the comment section what you all think about anything that I talked about in this podcast. Um, Presumably and preferably about Yamamoto because the Mauricio injury news is so fresh. We'll talk about the third base situation, I'm sure, not only in the True Mets Talk podcast, but on the Mets Roundtable and the Interstate Mets Report. We'll talk about that once we had a little bit of time to digest this injury and how it really impacts the New York Mets in 2024. It has a great impact on them, but we'll wait to see and to speculate on how the Mets go about that situation. So let me know what you all think about Yamamoto and the Mets' chances of signing him in light of the recent Dodgers news with the contract of Shohei Ohtani and those deferred payments. And as always, before I get out of here, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I thoroughly appreciate the support. Over 250 subscribers, well on my way to 300. Hope to get there in no time. I appreciate everybody who's subscribed. If you haven't, bottom right hand corner as you're watching this, hover over my icon and subscribe to the channel. Comment your thoughts and opinions. Everybody's opinion is always welcome on the True Mets Talk podcast. And support the podcast. Hit that thumbs up. I thoroughly appreciate that. Follow me on X and Instagram as well. Same handle as my YouTube at CPNYSports. This has been CP with another episode of the True Mets Talk podcast. Until next time, let's go Mets, and we'll continue to monitor any further developments as this offseason rolls along. See ya. Thank you for watching the latest episode of the CP New York Sports Pod. If you enjoyed this content, make sure you hit that thumbs up, comment your thoughts and opinions, and use the lower right-hand button of this video to subscribe to the channel. Thank you.